gentlemen, our topic for discussion today is media freedoms and civic space, the case for continued Facebook closure in Uganda. Our panelists are Brighten Abaho, who is a human rights activist. We shall have, in place of Alex Semambo, Henry, who will step in for him. Then we shall have our third panelist as Joy Turamuhawe, who is a digital influencer, student, and a business lady. I am Godwin Toko Abunia, and I'll moderate the discussion today. I'll just bring, just for the sake of having a better discussion, let me give you a background of this discussion. Media freedom is the principle that communication and expression through media be exercised freely. In 2016, the United Nations General Assembly passed a non-binding resolution to the effect that internet access is a human right. By that resolution, state parties, and Uganda indeed is a state party, were called upon to promote and protect the enjoyment of human rights on the internet. However, the right of access to internet has met several impediments in Uganda. The high cost of internet access locks out several Ugandans. The quality of internet services in the country leaves a lot to be desired. And actions by the state indicate that it has opted for a clampdown on the internet rather than promote access to it. I'll mention a few examples. Hours to the 2016 general election, the government turned down social media across the country. With that, there was no access to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and other social media sites. And the shutdown lasted a couple of days and was only lifted after the election results were announced. Only hours to the presidential inauguration in 2016, the government reversed its stand and turned off internet and turned off Facebook, social media for the second time. Very many Ugandans lost a lot since each of these shutdowns of internet came unannounced and suddenly. Since then, the government introduced the over-the-top tax, or the abbreviation of which is OTT, and very many Ugandans were locked out. As a matter of fact, a study by UBOS showed that up to 5% of internet users in Uganda, social media users in Uganda, dropped out because of that tax. There were demonstrations and there were calls, surprisingly, from within and without. One came from the World Bank and showed that the social media tax, OTT, was a huge impediment and one that government should do away with at the earliest opportunity. And one came from the Ministry of ICT in Uganda, and it also said the same thing, that, hey, this tax is crippling the sector. It's not helping us make progress. The government took no heed. Demonstrations on the streets by opposition leaders seemed to pour more fuel on the flame. And it's only this year, at the start of this month, July, that the government announced and reversed the policy that called for payment of tax, the OTT tax, through which people were then able to access social media. But it wasn't yet Uhuru. Again, as the government reversed the tax, it slapped a 12% internet access tax on all social media users, on all internet users, not social media this time. Let's get that correct. And we've since seen emails from internet service providers like Rock Telecom and Airtel that have literally passed the tax on to the final consumers. In 2021, this very year, the government indefinitely suspended access to social media site Facebook in the country. Facebook is one of the most widely used social media sites in the world and indeed in Uganda. Don't take my word for it. This is what a research by Jumia Uganda showed, that there are up to 2.5 million users of social media in Uganda. And of that, up to 92% of them used Facebook as one as either the only option or one of the options they had for social media. And this is what the government turned off. For its part, the government blamed Facebook for purging accounts that were associated with the ruling party, the NRM. In a statement released by Facebook, it accused those accounts of engaging in activities that breached its rules. To date, that ban has not been lifted. Even when the government turned off internet hours to the 2021 general election and lifted that ban, Facebook remains a site that is of no access to Ugandans. The only access Ugandans get to Facebook is through use of third-party apps like VPN. Now, this, ladies and gentlemen, is going to form the gist of our discussion today. We are going to have a discussion on social media and internet in Uganda with a special focus on the continued blockage of Facebook in the country as our topic for discussion. Without further ado, I'll move straight to the first question and put it before Mr. Abaho. Brighten, are you there?
Yes, Godwin.
Hello, Brighten. All
Godwin,
right.
I'm there.
So my question to you, you're going to launch for us the discussion with this question. Just how important is social media and Facebook in particular as a tool of civic engagement in Uganda today? I'll give you 6 minutes for that.
Thank you very much, Godwin, and thank you very much, my dear colleagues, for being part of this much discussion. Yes, like you clearly stated from the introduction, internet is increasingly becoming one of the most important things that we need. Actually, some people have gone ahead to call internet a right. So yes, internet itself is recognized as a right by the UN, and this is clearly from Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948, which actually talks about internet, which talks about the fact that the fundamental right of freedom of expression, of course, it needs to seek, receive, and impart information. And if you're to look at this, internet remains a medium of seeking, receiving, and imparting information. So there is no way that someone is going to stand and say that internet is not a source of information. So it being a source of information and it being and the right to information access being a fundamental right that is recognized by the UN, of course, it makes it something very, very, very important. Internet is a very important thing. But first of all, before we actually go social media in Uganda, what the regulation of social come from? This comes from the time when our own president Museveni made these statements. He said that people are using internet for mongering, something that Rugambo, and that is the reason why it is one of the reasons why we were able to see the government imposing social media tax on internet. And of course, like Ikira stated, a research and other entities, it clearly said that about 3.5 million people were no longer using internet after social media tax was introduced. So back to the question that you actually posed to me, social media is a very important platform. Why? It is a medium through which one can seek, receive, and impart information, which makes it something that is very important. And if we are to say that it is a medium of where one can get information, then impart information, then it becomes basic. It means it is very basic for businesses. As you may know, very many startup businesses have been using Facebook as a medium of advertising, marketing. That's how important social media has become. And the moment you limit the use of such a platform, it means that very many people have been out, especially in these hard times of COVID-19, where people can no longer move from one place or another, or in this time where people can no longer gather people in one place to tell them about their goods, services, and products. Of course, the people are left at the mercy of these social media platforms. So the blocking of Facebook, if we must understand, is that Facebook has at least 12 million users in the country. And Facebook having at least 12 million users in the country, it becomes a platform where people are going to go and seek information. So that's how important social media is, and that's how important Facebook is. And as of now, of course, we do not say that it shouldn't be regulated. It is key that social media platforms should be regulated. But how are they being regulated?
Okay, we are going to come to that.
Because
Brighten.
Of course, when the state says that social media is switched off for purposes of security, that is totally understandable, and we must that it is very, very important that social media is regulated.
Right, we are going to come to that.
It's important, must not be undermined or must be recognized. Okay.
Thank you, Brighten. So,
Godwin?
Henry back.
Oh, no problem. But basically, the
Brighten, I'm going to come back to you on the regulation. We can hold it at that for now. All right. So, Joy, I'm going to ask you this question as we wait for Henry to sort his connectivity. And I'm going to request that as you begin speaking, you turn on your video. How does the government clamp down on Facebook affect a young lady like you that does their business online? You have 5 minutes to answer that.
Unfortunately, right now I can't share my video.
Okay.
Yeah. Can I have the question again?
How does the government clamp down on Facebook affect a young lady like you that does their business online?
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Christine Turamuhawe, and I'm a student at Makerere University Business School. And I'm currently running some businesses, and they're all supported by social media. So locking down on social medias or putting unnecessary taxes really affects me as a person, because it makes accessing them expensive. Because even when we try to bypass the blocking, maybe by using VPNs and everything, the data we use ends up being extremely expensive, and we have to keep reloading and reloading. And I also believe from the statistics that you gave us some time, so many people have not been able to use social media ever since the blockages. For example, I was using Facebook, but ever since it was blocked, There's a time I logged in forgetting that it was blocked, and I actually thought I'd lost my account. And I just gave up on it until I thought about it after a whole week and remembered that they had closed down. That's when I realized, oh, it's actually not my account. I'm supposed to like get a VPN. So it has really, really affected me so much. And especially the fact that I have some perishable goods, groceries. It's usually difficult to sell them when I'm offline. So for example, during the elections, when they put us off, I lost a lot of foodstuffs. They got rotten in the 8 days when I was off, because as those people that were paying taxes, I didn't even have a VPN, and there's a time where I couldn't even download VPN at all. So I was among those people that were off for almost 10 days, which was a very, very long time. That's almost half a month. So I really made great losses, and I'm sure so many people were trying to reach to me. I had a client I was supposed to connect with, and they were abroad. They actually didn't know we're in a lockdown. They had been calling for like 4 days. When I wasn't picking, they even started calling their family members. They really didn't know what was going on in Uganda. So it has really been a challenge. We can't connect to other international clients. We can't even connect to the clients in our country. It's really a big challenge, and I believe it's affecting so many people.
Okay, that's fair enough. Is Henry back? Brighten, do you hear me?
Yes, I'm getting you, Godwin.
Okay, and we've been guided that if you think video connectivity is affecting your internet, then you can go for audio. The admin says that's perfectly okay. So I'll put this question to you, Brighten. Do you take the view that the state of Uganda is unfairly targeting social media as a tool of civic engagement?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Godwin. If you and I must agree, or okay, I do not know how we do things in the country, but we must agree that that over time, the president of Uganda has been very uncomfortable with the use of social media. Why? He has been uncomfortable given the fact that very many young people can access this platform where they can be able to air out their views, things that are affecting them. They're able to bring out, issues that are in the country. We have seen people use social media, in terms of what you call citizen journalism. They're able to break news of things happening here and there. And if you must understand is that even if you are the president, you would not be comfortable with how people are using these platforms. And therefore, in a bid to curtail the freedom of expression, in a bid to curtail access to information, then such regulations, such as imposition of taxes, have to be, they have to be imposed. Because if you are not, if I'm not mistaken, we have seen most of the opposition leaders, one Chagulanyi, who frequently uses social media to speak about, government failures and probably inspire the young people. And so, because all of these are coming up, of course, it has created a certain level of discontent that is made by, by the opposition through, young people who are using social media. And of course, all this is putting the government on pressure. And as such, the government has had to come out in order to control this, to control the growth of the digital descent, because we must agree that that government officials sometimes, probably the government cannot match the dissent that is put out by people who are willing, even if the government is to pay bloggers, like we saw government paying very many bloggers in order to market it, to market their agendas. So you really find this, that the government is putting up regulations. Of course, these are things that they have, copied from other countries such as China, because if we are not mistaken, in 2017, government of Uganda officials met with the Chinese government to discuss on how the Chinese government can help the government of Uganda to control social media, basically on how they can technically monitor and prevent social media use. Of course, like we all know, Uganda has about 15 million users on internet, and we have seen that from that time, the government has come up with different policies because they are worried about, about the descent. And of course, in the long time, in all that time, civic space in the country continues to shrink because the people cannot ably use these platforms to air out their views, cannot use these platforms to bring out their discomfort as a result of all these regulations that have been put in place. So, like you clearly stated, it is just these taxes and regulations are just they're just meant to replace. They are just a form of repression by the government in order to limit social media use, especially. Like we all know, every other time elections are coming, we have seen the government shut down social media. So of course you would totally understand that this is done basically to limit the people, to limit the views of the people who are bringing out bringing out information, criticizing the government, and every other thing. So, in regard to that, I think it is just to limit the freedom of expression in the country. Thank you.
Okay, is Henry back? And if I saw the unfortunate sight of him leave.
Yeah, I think Henry is having an issue with internet connectivity, so I think we can proceed.
Okay, but Joy is around, right? Joy, are you there?
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
I'm around.
So Joy, I'll ask you this. How does this magnitude of clampdown that has been meted out on social media over the last few years affect you as a student? One, in the execution of your academic duties, and two, in civic engagement. When I was at university, there was a lot of civic engagements, and part of them, we used social media to coordinate and organize. Does this affect you today as someone who is still at the university?
It definitely does, because right after COVID, which was in November, when schools were just being reopened, we were supposed to do most of our classes online, including this year in Jan and Feb when schools were still open. We were doing almost 60% of our classes online. And it's very unfortunate that we were not even hearing anything, first of all, because of bad network. Secondly, because the internet is expensive, there's some people who are from less privileged families that were not being able to connect. And now on top of the internet being bad and being expensive, there was also OTT. So it's a really, really, really crazy clampdown on students. Schools don't really provide internet, and when they do, it can only download maybe a few sentences of a WhatsApp text. They really can't, they can't accommodate like a Zoom call. 8 classes were on Zoom calls. So it was really crazy for us to study the person teaching you is maybe explaining a mathematical formula, and your network goes off. The next thing you know, he's finished, you've not understood, and they still expected us to sit for exams. It's really been a challenge because I myself really tried to attend some online classes, like for example, for my statistics paper, but I promise you, I didn't get anything at all because I was only attending the classes in bits and quarters. So it was really crazy. And also, like the tax, the 12% that they are imposing is really going to make internet expensive. And we Google, we do online tutorials from various platforms of learning. So it's really going to be expensive for us to access internet. I also have a young sister who has been stuck home for maybe almost 2 years now. And before that, she was maybe doing some internet lessons, which my parents now forbid because apparently she uses so much data, which is not really supposed to happen. So we are really in a country where data is expensive and our government is doing nothing but to increase the price for us.
Okay, that is fair enough. Do we have Henry back? Okay, looks like we don't have, Henry isn't yet back. So I'll continue to the second question with you, Joy. Joy, you were described as an influencer, someone that uses social media as not just a tool to market other products, like you said, but also social media becomes more or less your business, where you advertise other businesses, create awareness and all that. Just how big is the social media influencing industry in Uganda? I mean, for Ugandan youths, and how does this continuous clampdown on Facebook and on social media generally affect people like you that use social media as a tool for influence?
Okay, thank you. I'd like to believe that, for example, Facebook social media influencers have been affected greatly. There are some companies which have policies of how do I put it? They respect the orders of the government. So if they have closed down Facebook, they're actually not going to hire anyone to use Facebook to market because that's actually against the law. So many influencers, especially Facebook influencers, have really lost out on jobs, and people have been struggling for the past 2-3 years to grow their accounts, and now they can't even use them for anything because Facebook has been locked. So, and unlike other social media pages are open, honestly, the only problem would be expenses and maybe this 1 or 2, 3 times where they close us down, maybe during elections and swearing in and all that stuff. But I really believe Facebook has been what was greatly affected. For me, I majorly use Twitter, and it wasn't so much of a big deal because now it's open, but of course we were definitely affected during the 8-10 days where we were locked in Feb.
Okay, just to add substance to what you said, how big do you think the social media influencing industry on Facebook is for Ugandan youths? Could you estimate like how many people do it, how much they benefit, and how that benefit trickles down and all that?
It's a really, really big industry. It's actually a niche that people need to take advantage of. And COVID has actually showed us that the future is digital. Because right now people are stuck home. They're not reading newspapers, people are not buying newspapers, people are not seeing billboards. And the only thing they're fixated on is their phones. So right now, digital marketing is supposed to be like the next big thing. Actually, right now is the time where people should use it to do the most. And people are really making so much money. There are actually very, very many digital marketers because majority of my friends right now are digital marketers, and they have over, if I could count them by number of contacts, they're about 30. And that's just the ones I know, the ones I talk to, and the ones who are on Twitter. So imagine how many people actually on Facebook and Instagram. So there are so many digital marketers, and they're making a good amount of money because on a regular basis, you earn about 100,000 on different companies, on almost 100,000 per day. And other people like these big influencers, especially those who are artists and all like public figures, earn about almost 1 million per day or 500,000. It really depends on the person, but people are making so much money off brands on social media. So it's a niche that youth need to look into. Of course, not everyone can venture into it. It's also kind of a gift, just like anyone else is talented in certain things. Not everyone can be a digital marketer, but it's definitely something that everyone should look at as a source of employment, because it really, really makes money, and it's not about to stop. It's only just growing in Africa.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. I am sure that Henry is back.
Yes, I am back.
Nice having you. And we've been guided that in case connectivity becomes a problem and you attribute that to video, you could turn off your video and we just do audio. I mean, a place where internet is fab, so I'm not turn off the video for now. So Henry, I have a question for you.
Yes.
The government is in a catch-22 kind of situation between a hard place and a rock. A lot of people were doing businesses in Chikubo, they were doing businesses in Arua Park, they were doing businesses in town. Physical. So I would have to get a boda, go there and buy something. But since with the advent of social media and the penetration that keeps getting better with each person, people like Joy now sell things online. So Joy, when Joy does that, she is not paying taxes, direct taxes, I mean, to KCCA. She's not, she doesn't need a trading license. And in a way, it looks like government loses out revenue when Joy does that. So isn't it just fair that government should tax social media? After all, they are not paying taxes, so they can pay the little tax, and we still because we still need the roads, we still need hospitals, and we still need to buy chalk for the children that are studying as a government. What would you take? What would you make of that?
Well, thank you very much, Godwin, for that question. For the record, I am not against taxation. I am one of the biggest ambassadors of taxation. However, we need to tax in the right direction. For example, the 12% taxation on internet is an excise duty tax. And what it means, the little history we have about excise duty tax, at least the recent history we have about that kind of tax, is that we put that tax on products that are not valuable. Products like cigarette, products like alcohol. Now, is that the caliber in which we are viewing the internet? And if we must tax the internet, should we tax it as a venture that is not valuable? So from the onset, while we are trying to have internet taxed, we are beginning it from the wrong perspective. The internet is a very big player. We have 75% a young population, a population that has for so long been out of the economy, the productive economy at least. And this was an opportunity for young people to be of value. And it is not true that internet in Uganda is completely not taxed, because airtime is taxed. For me to have internet, I must buy airtime. Do you understand me?
Yeah, I get you.
So if we must tax, then we must tax in the right direction. And this is the guidance that we want to give to the state and those and the powers that be, that we must be very intentional. The fact that we think that, in my opinion, I think that this tax is not very intentional, and our leaders did not think about it, especially those in parliament did not think straight to this taxation, is the kind of tax that they have levied on the internet. And the mindset that we are carrying, that the internet is non-valuable. Even amidst a pandemic like this one, we cannot still see the extent to which internet is valuable. And that is very unfortunate. This country spent money to buy iPads for members of parliament. And I thought that that was a sign of the importance of the internet. It is still very unfortunate that even after we have spent that money, we are still blind. Our eyes and ears are still blocked. What is the intention really? We need to understand. We really, really need to understand and put these things into consideration. Or should we now take back our iPads and put them on black market and get solid money so that we can look after other things. But you see also the education sector. We are in a transformation where the education sector now, people are studying online. We are trying our level best not to be able to gather. There is a very big number of young people who are getting interested in getting educated. Today you find at the university a class of over 800 students. In these times, is that possible? Can we have 800 students in class in such times? Then how best can we be able to have people study, but also affordably? Because these are young people who are not very much engaged in the digital economy, even, because we're already excluding them, but not just in the digital economy, but the economy at large. We need to give them an opportunity. We need to give the young people an opportunity to be able to also study and acquire knowledge, but later generate knowledge. On the other hand, we are transforming into the economy of eventing things, the inventory economy. Then how are people going to be able to invent if it is expensive on the onset? We need to find cheaper means of business, cheaper means of accessing services. The internet, for me, I view it like a road construction. Because just as a farmer needs a good road to deliver their product to the market, so does a social media influencer need the internet. The internet is like a farmer's road, or the road for the digital influencer. How many farmers are taxed for using a road? If people are not paying directly for using a road, why should those who are using another kind of a road or be taxed like this?
Henry, I'll come in.
And that is where the disparity is. That is where the disparity is. And I hope, yes, please.
Just a second. So we have had our leaders calling the internet all sorts of names.
Yes.
The president has referred to it as a tool for Ugambo, which Brighton alluded to earlier.
Yes.
They seem to have to look at it as this monster, this dangerous thing that needs to be contained, that needs to be controlled. What causes this? Is it the difference in age, like some have said? I just want to understand this from someone like you that knows this thing.
It is definitely not the difference in age, Godwin. Godwin, I have seen very many people of advanced age that have welcomed and have received the use of internet positively. So I do not think, even His Excellency the President uses the internet very widely to reach out to us. When everything was shut down, His Excellency the President took on the media to be able to dispense the information that he wanted to the people. I also want to, by 50 to agree with those people who are kind of fatigued by how some young people are using the internet. There is of course clear evidence that there are people who misuse the internet. There are recently people who have been announcing others dead and what. It has become a source of false information. It has become all sorts of things, but this is not. You see, during the election period, the state came out to say that it had become a security threat. But how far are we still under that security threat? We need now to be informed. Are we still under that security threat? So there's an information gap that I also want to retaliate on. That the information gap is causing a lot of problems. But also I want to speak to those people who have misused the internet and are probably the reason as to why those who are using the internet for economic gain and for good reasons as a source of information, I want to speak to those people who have failed to understand that the internet does not exist for the wrong reasons. We need to be able to use these platforms profitably, and that is the only way we can gain out of them. So those bad characters are the ones.
Henry, let me come in for the last time, and then we'll move on to Brighten. I have a friend called Yusuf Serokoma. He's a researcher and a journalist. I was shocked when he told me that he believes in fake news. He thinks fake news is good. And he argues that for a country like Uganda, you need fake news because at the end of the day, a lot of things, actually fake news, a lot of real news begins as fake news. We've lived at a time when people are going to say, oops, so-and-so has been fired, or so-and-so has been deported. And the government will dismiss it. Then days later, it proves to be the truth. Yeah? So, and then when you have such a scenario, it becomes rather hard to tell which is fake news. And so maybe the government on its part and its officials are also contributing, also calling the misuse of internet. And I would just like to engage you on that.
Of course, that is a point of view of an opportunist, and I don't think I am that kind of person. You see, if you say that it begins as fake news and ends up as the right news, then it was never fake in the beginning. Let us begin with that.
Okay.
But where it is fake, when even after a long time, nobody proves it right. That is the information we are talking about. That people, someone just wakes up in the morning and feels like Godwin needs to be dead and announces Godwin dead. What is the psychological implication to the family of Godwin, but also to Godwin himself? There is a much longer implication, especially on the person of Godwin, sometimes, depending on who the person of Godwin is. It can even make you economically dormant for your own information because your psychology, that is why people get depressed every now and then. We have seen people who have been trolled on social media, called all sorts of things, and the following day you heard that somebody has dropped off a building. And all these things affect us. It may work for you as an individual, but what is the greater good for
The
other
general.
people? Yes.
Oh, thank you.
That is what
So, solutions. How you've talked to those people that misuse social media.
Yes.
Let's assume for a second that you're not just Henry speaking to me, and
Yes.
you're the in charge, you're the minister of ICT, or you're the president, or you're the in charge of parliament. How best do you separate this chaff from the good? How do you separate those? How do you ensure that they reduced misuse of internet, of social media, for the greater good? That Joy who wants to sell Irish potatoes can sell them without Toko, who is a confused fellow, announcing people dead. The striking that balance. How do you achieve that? Okay. Are you there, my good friend Brighten?
Yes.
Brighten, you there?
Yes. Godwin.
Okay. So there has been a move by the government that many have laughed off, but the government has insisted on saying that we are clamping down on Facebook, we are clamping down on WhatsApp and Twitter so that we can develop our own social media. You know, Instagram as an app is richer than has more revenue than the entire economies of East African community combined. Would you cut the government some slack, given this background, that they're actually trying hard? They are saying tomorrow but one, or 10 years from now, what we are doing now will enable us to have our own Instagram, and then we become a very rich country. What do you make of that?
Wow. Whereas that is an idea that all of us would be of us eyeing to have. It is not among our priorities as a nation and that should be a justification to the continued limitation or to the continued attack during the freedom of expression and speech through the use of internet. We must note that whereas that is a good idea, we are still far from having such an innovation. We are still far from, having an application or a platform through which, as a country, we can, through which the government can always wake up one day and say you're no longer using that. Why? Because the development of these platforms, applications, yes, but such a platform is not how, you cannot have, you will not have it, we think, because these people, especially such as Mark Zuckerberg, and they have invested a lot of money in having these platforms, and taken their time to have these platforms become the platforms that they are at the moment. So it would be okay. It sounds very unfortunate, much as it is good. As Africa, can we have our own platform that we can something like that? Because if the reason as to why we have Facebook suspended at the moment, it is political. Why? Because after the removal of 426 of any accounts, so the president directed UCC to suspend Facebook, and then and the other comments he said, but I don't think this creation of such a platform is among our priorities, and it shouldn't be used as a justification for crippling people's businesses. It shouldn't be used as a justification for, for the continuous crackdown of social media platforms such as Facebook. What we need to understand as a country, we need to, because these platforms are created. So Uganda as a country, we just need to look for ways how we can regulate, but not put out these platforms which are very useful to the country, because the more we have Facebook clamped down, it's the more that young people who do not have businesses, who do not have jobs, and who depending on Facebook as influencers have lost out jobs. They are no longer earning like they used to earn. Businesses used to earn a lot from advertising using Facebook, and at this time, many of these businesses' health have down. Because people can no longer afford the data. VPN is more expensive than what we previously had. So even right now, but we are required to use VPN in order to access Facebook. It still already has the highest. Yes. or Uganda already very as compared to other countries. By sea, it was revealed that the cost of Uganda was for around 9,800 shillings. A cost of 1 GB of 1 GB in Kenya goes for 8,000. A cost of 1 GB in Tanzania goes for 8,000 and you know, which means that Uganda has the highest cost of internet, and as such, if the cost of internet is increasingly becoming high, and then you're using VPN. By the way, another thing that we need to understand is that the more times that they use VPN, the owners of VPN they use that not to access information, which is also very, 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 because we don't know whom they are going to send this information to as far as that is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Brighten.
Godwin, I would just to give some little more information on what Abaho was telling us, because when he was breaking, he was trying to tell us the prices, comparing the prices of our Kenya and Tanzania, our East African neighbors, and he notes that Uganda has the highest price. And no wonder that a case study of Kenya has about 21 million users of internet, vis-a-vis Uganda that has only 12 million users on the internet. Those 12 million users, only 3% of the 12 million users can access social media.
So what you're basically saying is that there is a correlation between the pricing and access.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. That's fair enough. You had left when you had a question. I don't know if you want to respond to the question that you had.
I will gladly respond to that question. I'll gladly respond to that question, Godwin. You had asked me how to probably separate between those people who are using the internet for safe reasons from those who are using the internet for the wrong reasons. You see, Godwin, if in a parish, for example, you have a chicken thief, you don't arrest the whole parish. You definitely don't. Deploy the relevant intelligence, the needed intelligence, round up on that individual who is causing a bloody nose to the parish, arrest him, get him arrested, and charge him for the various offenses that he has committed. And the same thing should apply here. Those who are using the internet for malice purposes and for misguiding the nation, there are laws in place to clamp them down, or to arrest them, or to regulate them. And so that should be the direction. Let us deploy the right intelligence on these people, get them accountable for their actions.
Henry, is it just a second? You get me?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
The chicken thief scenario is rather an interesting one. But when you're dealing with internet, you're dealing with something so virtual. I can, by the end of tonight, by the end of this discussion, I can create an account under a fake name, using a fake Gmail, and spread fake news, and go there and say things, and go there and proclaim people who are alive dead. Is that more complicated than the chicken thief, whom we are going to track simply by searching where the feathers, the chicken that is missing, are coming from, and then hand over to the authorities? So isn't it more complicated when you have to regulate the internet by simply pulling out the chaff from the good seeds? Oh no, end result. So Abaho, do you hear me?
Yes,
Abaho?
Godwin. Yes, Godwin.
Okay. So with you, I'm going to have the last round of questions. When Henry and Joy come, I have one question for each and then the last. So I want to understand from you, how best should the government then handle the issue of Facebook, bearing in mind the fact that there is misuse, bearing in mind the fact that the government needs to make money, and bearing in mind the fact that government wants to come up with its own social media. So how best should government balance these interests? In 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Godwin. Like I clearly stated earlier on, the issue between Facebook and the government is so political because Facebook is not willing to back down to the demands of the government. And given the fact that Facebook is not willing to back down, why? To back down to such demands, then of course people have to be affected because Facebook will continue to be and of course this is going to continue to affect very many people, and but what we need to understand that it's very unfortunate that very many times when this country is coming up with these regulations and laws and policies, it's very unfortunate that our leaders whom we send to parliament to represent us, they seem not to represent us very well. They seem not to represent the views of the people on the ground. For example, in 2017, when OTT was being introduced, the members of parliament who stood to support the imposition of this tax on the basis that it was going to generate tax, they did not put into consideration the effects it was going to have, because OTT and these taxes will continue to affect the people. Like Henry clearly stated earlier on, this 12% of tax is going to increase the cost of internet that is already high. Had they done, a clear analysis or an understanding of the contribution of the internet to the economy, then would not have these issues of people standing up to complain about its use, to complain about the taxes that have been introduced, the taxes that have imposed. It all goes back to the issue of consultation. Let us engage not just people in Kampala, but let's engage people, local people on ground, engage digital influencers, engage people who benefit from internet, for you to understand the impact of a certain policy, regulation, or tax that is going to be imposed. Because if you get to understand, or if you get to generate all those views from the people, then this is going to communicate very well. It gives an informed decision, or it helps, because at the end of the day, when such consultations are keenly taken, then you do not have all these issues of people complaining about this and this. It's in most of the times, like I've said, the issue of social media, it is not about generating taxes, because you and I will agree that this country still has very many other avenues through which it can actually generate these taxes that they are talking about. But the issue of social media and regulation and the imposition of taxes, it is just one of the ways that the regime is using in order to control online information, to control online dissemination of information. Because if a certain group of people does not have, cannot afford to buy MBs, then probably they will not be able to access this information from social media.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So we don't have Henry and we don't have Joy. I will ask you this for your last question.
Yes.
The question of territorial sovereignty, and I know that this is something you know very well. The government of Uganda says, we are the owners of this house, so we call the shots. At what point do you think the government should then swing its arm and say, at this point, we no longer want Facebook? From you've consistently argued that this ban on Facebook was irrational because there was not enough reason to warrant it. So what, in your view, would be that action by Facebook that would say, whoa, no, this is going beyond, to hell with Facebook, if you are the government?
Thank you very much. You see, some of these things sometimes you need to evaluate the impact of a decision that you have taken.
True.
It is likely the government did not assess the impact of shutting down Facebook. The government thought that shutting down Facebook in the country would hurt Facebook as Facebook. But this is hurting its citizens. And these are its citizens that it should be protecting. These are its citizens that were earning or benefiting from the innovation or from Facebook as a platform. Yes, whereas it's true that Facebook is earning a lot of money from Facebook through people who pay money for adverts and every other thing. But still, the citizens of Uganda were benefiting very much, especially in this time of the digital era where we cannot have people come in one place and then someone is telling them about the product, services, and So we also need to look the timing of shutdown of this platform. Is it the right time for it to shut down the platform? I do not think it is the right time, given the fact that every other thing that is being done at the moment is going digital. And we must, you and I will agree that Facebook was providing a platform through which businesses, through which people can be able to carry out their businesses digitally, especially through marketing, advertising for sales, all those things. But my suggestion would, the government of Uganda should actually sit on a round table with Facebook, if need be, such that there are issues that of course stem from the fact that the accounts of NRM were blocked or were removed from Facebook. Then the government of Uganda needs to sit down on a round table in order for them, they need to sit down on a round table with Facebook in order for them to iron out these issues such that the citizens of the country can benefit from this platform. Because, like I earlier stated, it's the citizens who are earning from it, it's the citizens who are benefiting from it. Because whereas Facebook in one or the other is also losing out some money from, but the government also needs to think about its citizens. That remains the most important thing. Because yes, it has the authority, it can, shut down, it can, block, and yeah, it's true. But the most important thing should be the citizens of the country.
Okay. Thank you. So, unfortunately, Joy and Henry aren't back. So I'm going to seek guidance from the admin. Prosper, how do we proceed? Do we end it here?
Let's keep engaging. Let me see if I can get them back on.
Okay. So We give them how many minutes?
5 minutes. 5.
Okay, so in those 5 minutes, I will then ask, unfortunately, we are going to ask Brighton so many questions. I'll ask you, Brighton, this question. There is a section of society that argues that whether there's a ban or no ban on Facebook, I'm indifferent. I have access to VPN and I can always bypass the government blockage of government blockade on Facebook. And quite a number of Ugandans are on Facebook today, despite the ban. Don't you think that this at least mitigates the extent of this problem? And well, we can actually do with it without the government lifting this ban. Perhaps they can be around for the next say 10 years and you don't care.
Thank you very much, Godwin. Yes, whereas it's true that people can adopt the use of VPN in order to bypass the government suspensions and blockages, we also need to know that VPN increases the cost of internet. You and I who have used data on to access these social media platforms, you'll understand that if, let's say, you have 100 MBs and you use these 100 MBs without VPN, you'd probably be able to stream for the whole day. But if you're using VPN, you're probably going to stream for less than 4 hours using VPN, and in the long run, that will increase the cost of internet. And increasing the cost of internet that is already high in the country, and you're increasing the cost of internet, yet the cost of earning the money, which platforms are available for people to earn this money that they are going to invest in using internet. Take, for example, a social media influencer who is going to earn about 50,000 on, they call them gigs, on a gig. So if a social media influencer who will invest in 10,000 to buy internet, and then he or she has bought internet and has used VPN to access Facebook in order to do his responsibility as required, then it is going to turn out that this person is going to spend more on internet when they are using VPN than when they are using when they are not using VPN. So this whole situation, you realize that the issue that we need to look at, much as yes, VPN can be there and people, but the cost of internet is increasing with the increasing use of VPN, and this is something that we are actually speaking about. We are already saying the cost of internet is high, but now if you add a VPN, is it going to become worse? So I think these things, they just need to be streamlined. We cannot say that we shall continue using VPN to access Facebook. No, the government of their decisions, they need to make an analysis such that these decisions are revised, and then and Facebook is the ban is lifted such that people can freely use this platform. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Abaho. Brighton is Henry is back, and it seems like the question I put to Henry has kept eluding us. Henry, can you just answer that question in like 2 or 3 words?
I beg your pardon, I didn't get it clearly at first.
The question I put to you first. the one you've been laboring to answer?
Yes, I beg you pardon me, please.
Oh, for that question.
Are we talking about the chicken analogy?
You answered it. If we talked about the chicken analogy,
Yes.
turns out you answered it. Now, for me, I'll put this to you. You said you have you're interested in taxation and you've never opposed taxation. I'll then ask you this: what is the best policy of taxation that the government can adopt with social media and in Uganda?
Okay. So it is quite. Look here. Let me first give this from OTT.
Okay.
We had a target of about, I think, 77 billion US dollars. That was the target of URA. Uganda did not even collect 20% of that target. Now that meant that the state and government shot itself in the leg. Because as it was looking for the money, it chased the money away. So we need to look for ways in which we can look for money that we can get. Overtaxing internet does not create a solution. Rather, what creates a solution for us to enlarge our tax base is to give people an opportunity to work and have an income.
Okay.
The more income, because what we are doing is that we are taxing on non-valuables. A good principle of taxation is taxing money on value. But people are not making any value. I am sitting home and I am talking to my friend, probably asking my relative how they are doing, and I am also being taxed for that. It still does not make sense. There is no value in that. But I need to be encouraged to use the internet even further than greeting, so that we have many more people who are using the internet and are making an income. When people are now making an income, there is value, then we tax on the income tax. The problem we are having is that there is a very small margin with an income. And so we are struggling so much to even tax those without an income. I don't know if you understand. So the trick is behind making sure that the population, as much as possible, can have an income on which we can tax. Because in so doing, we are taxing on value. So we need to empower young people. The 75, I have the whole, I think the state needs to invite some of us to guide it on some of these things. I have a paper on the informal education sector that introduces the aspect of economy in an education system, that young people can be able to generate an income even while they are still in an education system. We would not be complaining so much in this pandemic if that is the kind of system we had. Because children are now starting to get a job. But if I cannot go to school, then that means that chances of me getting a job are 1% if I've not gone to school. That is the mindset. But if we had an economy that empowers a young person to make money even without worrying about the future of an education, because their education is a source of income. I go to school to manufacture knowledge. But here we go to school to learn how to cram and answer questions. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I get it. Now, in the interest of time, I'm going to ask for your parting shots in 2 minutes.
Okay, then my parting shots are really simple. And these are call outs to the powers that be. Number one, we need to remember the reason as why Facebook and the internet in the first place were shut down. There were claims on insecurity. We need an update on that. I at least I spend some time to watch the security updates every day that the security organs normally have on some of the media houses every single day. None of the security threats they give us are connected to social media. So we need to know how far with that. Are we still having a security threat? Number two, the 12% tax on social media, on the internet, a big your pardon, 12% on internet needs to be revised as soon as possible. If not, if possible, it needs to stop, especially that we are in a pandemic now, we are under a lockdown. Because people cannot afford it. And if we cannot afford it, still government will not reach its target. We cannot continue failing to reach our targets, yet we are spending on some of these projects.
Okay.
Finally, internet is a big contributor of an active civic space. And that we need to enable all the actors in this, because this is right now, it is even, you may even fear to go to a police station right now, not because they are brutal or anything, but because you fear to find very many people and get infected. I need to be home and it is affordable for me to be in touch with police. I have seen cases where people have used the internet, gotten in touch, commented something they have seen in the community, tagged a few police officers and the police Twitter account, and actually they have responded. We need to make such initiatives even easier.
Okay.
We also need to make sure, and see, we can even mobilize ourselves with the Abahos and Joy, who has been here with us. We can write a detailed paper on how the internet is an opportunity for the transformation of the economy of Uganda. So the young people of this country should be looked at as an asset, and that the things in which they are good at in the same way should be looked at as an opportunity to transform this country. If we cannot have the right mindset, then we cannot have the right fit in the right direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Parting shots, Abaho, in 2 minutes.
Yes, Godwin. Thank you very much. What I can say is that, one, we need to continue engaging the government. I think we need to continue calling out the government, and if there is a possibility of engagement, we engage the government on the need to make sure that that the ban on Facebook is lifted. Then the government needs to also carry out an assessment on the impact on the impact of the ban on Facebook. After the government has made that assessment, then such an assessment is going to inform them on the fact that the citizens of Uganda are the ones that are being inconvenienced, rather than Facebook as an institution. So the most important thing as we move forward is that we just need to engage the government, and the government where they are, whoever is responsible, UCC, the Ministry of Information, they need to hear the views of the people. They need to listen to what the people are saying in as far as this issue is concerned, because very many people are being inconvenienced. This time where we should be, all saying digital, the government needs to put into consideration that this is a very this is a very peculiar time that it needs to pay attention to, that digital means have to be supported. So as we move forward, let's continue pushing for, seeking for information, engaging the government in order for this ban to be lifted. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Also, before we go, I think I need to note that our conversation today is a very big sample space for how difficult it is to use the internet in this country, and it is a justification for it not to be even made any harder.
I tried hosting the youth MPs over the weekend, and man, it was terrible. It was much worse than this. And this conversation was supposed to be here last week, but was pushed to today because of the internet. Yet still, it hasn't been. It has been slightly better, but not as best as we want it to be. So clearly, there's a problem of internet connectivity in this country. There's a problem with its costs, and there's a problem with the government's attitude that views it as an enemy upon which it has clamped down severely. That said, we've had a very rich and meaningful conversation. I want to thank you all for your participation, and I hope that we have more of these conversations. I hope that we take it up with the relevant authorities and see to it that Facebook is restored, and the many Ugandans that make a living off Facebook and use it for various reasons, and get back to that and enjoy whatever they were using Facebook for. Godwin Toko is my name. Thank you very much. God bless you all. God bless Uganda.